Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephen Landers. I am the owner of Sparky Education, and I'm excited to be doing these video courses. I've noticed that a lot of you have responded to the questions that I've put at the beginning of the course, asking whether you wanted to do a multiple choice question test or you wanted to do a video course. And a lot of you were saying that you wanted to do a video course. So that's what I'm doing. A little bit about myself before we get started. I am an electrical foreman for a electrical contractor commercial here in my local area. I've worked on big projects, hospitals, casinos, large 17-story office buildings, big projects like that. So I've had quite a bit of experience getting to see a lot of different electrical installations. And through the years, the 13 years, I have been able to also move into teaching, which is something that has really excited me. I started teaching at the electrical apprenticeship about 4 years ago, and that kind of spurred me on to start Sparky Education so that I can try and bring some good information to electricians. So I know that this is not your favorite thing to do. It's not my favorite either, but we all have to do it. So I'm going to try my best to make it a time that you actually get to learn something, not a time that we just sit here and, do nothing, but you get to learn something. So that's my goal. There's going to be 4 videos. The first video is going to be what you're looking at right now. We're going to go over the electrician administration rules. The second one, we're going to do some electrical safety. The third one and the fourth one are both going to be on the National Electric Code. So that is what is required by the TDLR that I go over with you guys. I'm going to try to open up my computer. I'm sharing my screen right now so you guys can see and actually get into some drawings, get into some real life situations that I've run into, so that this isn't just some boring class. I find that if I can bring you into things that I've learned, and it might be a little difficult on your iPad or maybe you're on your phone. You can do it on your phone, absolutely. I'm going to zoom in as much as I can and kind of go over some lighting control stuff, some different things, and then we'll bring in the National Electric Code at the end. This first part's not going to be the funnest. We got to go over this section. But even though it's not fun, it's good to know, because if you want to move from being, let's say, an apprentice to a journeyman, there's stuff in here for you. A journeyman to a master, there's stuff in here for you. Maybe you are a master and you want to start your own electrical contracting company. Well, you have to know these rules. You have to know these laws. So we're going to go through this. And like I said, then we'll do some safety, and then we'll do National Electric Code where it gets a little funner. I'll open up, like I said, my computer screen to some drawings, and we'll go over some different things. So one thing I have to note, in my computer program, I can see how long you took to take this course. The TDLR does require you to spend the full amount of training time. So please make sure that you leave the videos running, that you try to watch them. I know some of you might not, but please just use this time to actually learn something. So yeah, let's get started. Right here, electricians, you'll see this is the electrician administrative rules. This is going to go over the different administrative rules that the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation has. We're going to go over here, as you see, the authority, who has the authority. We're going to go over different definitions that are pertained within this specific code here. We'll go over licensing requirements for applicants, examinations, general renewals, waivers of examination requirements, continuing education, documentation of required on-the-job training, licensing requirements, for temporary apprentices, licensing requirements for emergency licenses, exemptions, insurance requirements, electrical contractors' responsibilities, electrical sign contractors' responsibilities, responsibilities of all persons performing electrical work, residential appliance installer contractor responsibilities, and so on. There's a lot of stuff we're going to cover. So let's go ahead and get started. Section 73.1 here, the authority. These rules are promulgated under the authority of Title 8 Occupations Code Chapter 1305 and Title 2 Occupations Code Chapter 1. One thing to note here is that the TDLR actually has committee meetings that you can watch. They host them on their website, and then they're also on YouTube. I've found that these videos, they're pretty boring, but I've noticed that they listen to the what's the word? The community. There's people coming in and they talk about different things that have happened in their community in the state of Texas, and they allow people to talk to them. And you can watch these. I don't know with COVID how everything's going with that, as far as whether they're allowed to actually go there or not, and be in person. But I do know that those can be good resources, and those are who we're talking about. Those are the committee members who have the authority here, who make the laws, who make the rules in the state of Texas for electricians. Definitions. The following words and terms when used in this chapter have the following meanings unless the context clearly indicates otherwise. Assumed name, a name used by a business as defined in the Business and Commerce Code. Business affiliation, the business organization to which a master licensee may assign his or her license. An employee, an individual who performs tasks assigned to him by his employer. The employee is subject to the deduction of Social Security and federal income taxes from his pay. An employee may be full-time, part-time, or seasonal. Employer, one who employs the services of employees, pays their wages, deducts their required Social Security and federal income taxes from the employee's pay, and directs and controls the employee's performance. I'm not going to go through every single one of these. I think we can just pull out some of the important ones here. Electrical contractor, a person or entity licensed as an electrical contractor that is in the business of performing electrical contracting as defined by Texas Occupations Code. Master electrician, an individual licensed as a master electrician who, on behalf of an electrical contractor, electrical sign contractor, or employing governmental entity, performs electrical work as defined by Texas Occupations Code. Journeyman electrician, an individual licensed as journeyman electrician who works under the general supervision of a master electrician on behalf of an electrical contractor or employing governmental entity while performing electrical work as defined by Texas Occupations Code. You can see it there. Then we have electrical apprentice, electrical sign contractor, master sign electrician, journeyman sign electrician, residential wireman, maintenance electrician, electrical maintenance work. I think this would be good to define the replacement or repair of existing electrical appurtenances, apparatus, equipment, machinery, or controls used in connection with the use of electrical energy in, on, outside, or attached to a building, residence, structure, property, or premises. That's a long sentence. All replacements or repairs must be of the same rating and type as the existing installation. No improvements may be made that are necessary to comply with applicable codes under Texas Occupations Code Chapter 1305. Electrical maintenance work does not include the installation of any new electrical appurtenances, apparatus, equipment, machinery, or controls beyond the scope of any existing electrical installation. Electrical sign work, you guys know what this stuff is. Work involved in the manufacture or electrical equipment, electrical sign apprentice, on-the-job training, residential appliance installer, So if you ever need to know specifically what the TDLR is referring to when they define a term, this is where you go. They have electrician administrative rules, and you can find all those here. They're going to use some of these terms in the lower sections here. And so I think that's why they're defining this. We do the same thing in the National Electric Code, in NFPA 70E, safety. It's the same thing. So the first section here that actually gets into the rules is 73.20, licensing requirements, applicant and experience requirements. An applicant for a license must submit the required fees with a completed application and the appropriate attachments. Applicants for master electrician, master sign electrician, journeyman electrician, journeyman sign electrician, residential wireman, journeyman lineman, maintenance electrician, and journeyman industrial electrician licenses must submit documentation proving the required amount of on-the-job training. Applicants for contractors' licenses must submit proof of general liability insurance and either workers' compensation insurance or a certificate of authority to self-insure, or a statement that the applicant has elected not to obtain workers' compensation insurance pursuant to subchapter A, chapter 406 Labor Code with the initial and renewal applications. Number 3 here, applicants for contractors' licenses must submit proof of ownership of the business entity and provide documentation of the sponsoring master licensee in a manner prescribed by the department. Number 4, an applicant for a journeyman lineman license must submit documentation proving the required amount of training in an apprenticeship program or the requirement amount of experience as a journeyman lineman. An applicant must complete all requirements within 1 year of the date the application is filed. Each applicant must meet the applicable eligibility requirements as set forth in Texas Occupations Code 1305.153 through 1305.1618. The next section here, 73.21, licensing requirements having to do with examinations. The first section here, to obtain a license by examination issued under this chapter, an individual applicant must submit all completed application or a completed application, all necessary documentation, and appropriate fees to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation for review and determination of examination eligibility. Number 2, an individual applicant must achieve a passing score on an examination approved by the executive director of the TDLR. B, to obtain a license without examination, an applicant must have been licensed for the preceding year by a municipality or regional licensing authority that has terminated its licensing program and have applied for a state-issued license within 90 days of the date the program stopped issuing or renewing licenses. So if for some reason, your region or municipality has terminated its licensing program, you're going to need to apply with another one. Section 73.22, licensing requirements general. A license issued under this chapter is valid for 1 year from the date of issuance and must be renewed annually. You all know that. That's why you're taking this course. A person shall not perform electrical work requiring a license under Title 8 Texas Occupations Code, Chapter 1305 with an expired license. C, falsifying information on an application, obtaining a license by fraud or false representation, or cheating on an examination is grounds for denial, suspension, or revocation of a license and or an administrative penalty. D, an electrical contractor, an electrical sign contractor, or a residential appliance installation contractor shall not use a license number that is not assigned to that contractor by the department. E, a license is not transferable. F, altering a license in any way is prohibited and is grounds for a sanction and or penalty. G, if a licensee contracts with a general contractor or a home warranty company to provide installation or service that requires a license under the Act, the licensee remains responsible for the integrity of that work. You guys get that one? So if you're a licensed contractor and you contract with a general contractor or a home warranty company and you provide installation, you are responsible for the integrity of that work. H, a person using the license of another person or allowing another person to use his license shall be subject to license denial, suspension, or revocation and or assessment of a penalty. The next section, 73.23, and I promise that this is going to get better. We have to get through this. We have to learn about these different codes. They want you to be reminded of this. So bear with me. We'll get into electrical safety, and then we'll get into the fun stuff in the NEC at the end. Licensing requirements renewal, 73.23. Non-receipt of a license renewal notice from the department does not exempt a person or entity from any requirements of this chapter. B, a complete request for renewal must be filed on the form approved by the department and includes all required fees by the expiration date to maintain continuous licensure. C, applications not filed by the expiration date are considered applications for late renewal and are subject to late renewal fees. Some of you have already taken my course. You know, we try our best within 24 hours to get your continuing education processed. I know that some of you take the course right up until that date. Some of you have taken it right on that date. And I know that it's really important that you guys get it done so that you don't have to pay any late renewal fees. If I don't get the certificate of completion done and emailed to you within 24 hours, I will go in and go to the TDLR's website where I input that you have completed your course, and I will do that within 24 hours every time. So I think I've had one of you guys that I messed up on, and I think you paid first and then you finished your course like a month later. And it's best if you do them both at the same time. Take your course and then pay, because it can get mixed up in my email inbox. But for the most part, everything's been pretty seamless. So I just want you guys to know that I work hard at what I do. I do work a full-time job, but I'm trying to build Sparky Education and provide some really good continuing education for you guys. So just know that. And if for some reason it does fall through the cracks, you can always email me. Go on sparkyeducation.com. You can find my email. There's a contact page there. Shoot me an email real quick and I'll get you guys handled. We'll get whatever taken care of, whatever the issue is. Where were we? Non-receipt, complete request. We'll just do C again. Applications not filed by the expiration date are considered applications for late renewal and are subject to late renewal fees. D, licenses issued from a late renewal application will have an unlicensed period from the expiration date of the previous license to the issuance date of the renewed license. Electrical work that requires a license issued under this chapter shall not perform during the unlicensed period. Section 73.24, licensing requirements, waiver of examination requirements. An applicant who is licensed in another state that has entered into a reciprocity agreement with Texas regarding licensure of electricians, sign electricians, journeyman linemen, journeyman industrial electricians, or residential appliance installers may obtain an equivalent license in Texas without passing the examination, provided that all other licensure requirements are met as defined by the Texas Occupations Code. So this here, if you're coming from another state, I know there's a few of you who do have out-of-state licenses. You know that there's only certain states that are reciprocal with Texas, meaning California is not reciprocal with Texas. So the license that someone has, say in California, New York, they are not reciprocal. Other states, it's all different. Some states are reciprocal with other states, some states are not. So you just have to look into it. If you're coming from another state, you need to check to see if you might not have to take the exam. The exam, I believe, is 100 questions. I don't know if it's changed. And it's like something like 4 hours. So if you can get out of that, that's good. But you have to make sure you follow the TDLR's requirements there and fill out the proper application, show them the proper documentation from whatever state you're in. Next section here, B, the examination requirement is waived if, based upon acceptable proof, the executive director determines that the provisions of 73.21B, what we just read, are met. Or no, that's not what we just read. C, acceptable proof of an applicant's qualifications must be presented on a form prescribed by the department that, number one, certifies completion of the required hours of on-the-job training under the supervision of a master electrician or master sign electrician as appropriate. Or number two, is completed by the municipality or region in which the applicant was licensed for at least 1 year. Next section, what we're doing right now, 73.25, continuing education. First section A, terms used in this section have the meanings assigned by Chapter 59 of this title unless the context indicates otherwise. B, for each renewal, an electrical apprentice, electrical sign apprentice, journeyman electrician, master electrician, journeyman sign electrician, master sign electrician, residential wireman, journeyman lineman, maintenance electrician, or journeyman industrial electrician must complete 4 hours of continuing education in, number one, the National Electric Code, as adopted under Title 8 Occupations Code 1305.101, or the current version of the National Electric Code as approved by the NFPA there, the National Fire Protection Association. What we're reading right here is this is what I said in the beginning. I have to cover the National Electric Code, state laws and rules, and safety here, as you can see, as defined in the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA 70E. I'm going to show you guys when we get into those sections, for 10 bucks a month, 10 bucks a month. I think they just changed it because a year ago, the NFPA, you could access the code online, which meant that you could access the code anywhere. But I believe that you still had to purchase the entire code book. Well, I just noticed last night that they changed it. It's $10 a month, and you actually get access to all of the NFPA's books. So you get the National Electric Code, NFPA 70, you get NFPA 70E, as well as a whole barrage of other books that they have. And it's all available online. You just go to their website. Anytime you need to look up a code, anytime you need to look up anything. So go there. It's nfpa.org, I believe, and look for, I forget what they call it. It's NFPA link, I think is what it's called. 10 bucks a month. And you have access to all of that stuff. It's way cheaper than trying to purchase all of those books separately. So we're going to use that in those sections when we get to the next videos. Kind of as a guide, we'll go through it. We're going to break down the NFPA 70E. We'll break down NFPA 70, the code book. We're going to go through Article 90, figure out what the code, I mean, as I was writing this course, I mean, I've been in the trade for 13 years. I even learned stuff out of it. You're constantly going to be learning. You're never going to get to a point where you say, I understand the code completely. So it's going to be good. All right, C, in lieu of taking, this is good. This is really good for some of you guys. Not so good for my business, but good for you guys, and I want you to know it. In lieu of taking 4 hours of continuing education as required in 73.25B, an electrical apprentice or electrical sign apprentice may enroll in a department registered apprenticeship training program. I don't really care that it's not good for my business. What I care about is that you guys get into an approved apprenticeship program somewhere. I've heard that some are better than others. You just have to look out. You guys, if you're an apprentice and and you really want to learn this trade, you really want to grow in your knowledge and make this a career, you got to get into some sort of apprenticeship program. I went to the Associated Builders and Contractors apprenticeship program. It was good. I've been in both the union and the non-union. I know there's a big argument about that. I'm not going to get into that here. I've seen both sides. Both of the apprenticeships are pretty comparable. Get into one that is, if it's in your area, I would say an ABC or a WICA, something like that. It might not be in your area though. At least get into something. For one, you don't have to take continuing education. You will once you become a journeyman or a master or you're an electrical contractor. But at least for your apprenticeship, you can get out of 25 bucks, 20 bucks, whatever it is, depending on what program you use. You can get out of it. You don't have to take this course. Your hours in the apprenticeship count toward continuing education. So yeah, let's move on. D, in the case of a timely renewal, the continuing education hours must have been completed or enrollment must have occurred in a department registered apprenticeship training program within the term of the current license. For a late renewal, the continuing education hours must have been completed or enrollment must have occurred in a department registered apprenticeship training program within 1 year prior to the date of renewal. Section E here, a licensee may not receive continuing education credit for attending the same course more than once. Now, I want to be clear on this. Don't think that you guys can't come back and take my course again. Every single year, I have to resubmit documentation to the TDLR, and within that resubmission, it becomes a new course because I have to update the videos, I have to update the content. TDLR changes things in the electrician administrative rules. Every 3 years, they come out with a new code book. I believe it's also 3 years for the NFPA 70E. So there's always something changing. So you guys can come back to my course every year. So don't think, or someone else's. If you prefer someone else's course, you're able to learn better over there. 100%. Take that course, and as long as they made updates to it, they made changes. It's a brand new course number that I get from the TDLR every year. So you guys feel free. You can come back. Don't let that one scare you away saying, oh, well, I already took Sparky Education, so I can't do it. Just know that I create new courses every year. Sometimes they're not completely different, but they have updates in them. Every 3 years, when we get to the NEC portion, there's going to be changes, like major changes. So I just want you guys to know that so that you feel, if you like this, you can keep coming back every year. If you don't, you can keep going back to whatever course you do find that works best for you. Section F here, a licensee shall retain a copy of the certificate of completion for a course for 1 year after the date of completion. In conducting any inspection or investigation of the licensee, the department may examine the licensee's records to determine compliance with this subsection. Just in case anything were to happen with the TDLR, perhaps they misplace it, something happens, make sure you keep a copy of the email that I send you that has the certificate of completion in there. All right, G, to be approved under Chapter 59 of this title, a provider's course must be dedicated to instruction in 1, the National Electric Code, 2, state laws and rules, 3, safety as defined in the National Fire Protection Association. We already went over this again or before. It looks like they just put it in here again. Section H, to register an apprenticeship training program with the department, a program must file a completed application in a form approved by the department. Number 2, provide proof to the department that the program is A, recognized by the Texas Workforce Commission or the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, B, registered with the United States Department of Labor, or C, a competency-based standardized craft training program that meets the training program standards of the United States Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship, and pay the required application fee. this is something that I've been thinking about. I really enjoy teaching. I enjoy working. I enjoy electrical. I've built a career around it. It's taking care of my family. My wife's able to stay at home. Um, One thing I do really want to do, though, at some point is open an apprenticeship program. I want to see you guys grow. I want to see you guys learn, and I want to learn. You know, the best way I think to increase in your knowledge over the years is to be continually flooding yourself with information. I really like teaching National Electric Code classes. It keeps me sharp. It keeps me learning the code. And you know, that's one thing you guys really got to think about in your career. You know, there's so many different things in the electrical industry. You apprentices, especially listen up here. The journeyman and masters, you guys probably know some of this stuff, but you apprentices, there's so many different avenues that you can take in the electrical industry. I mean, I thought that I'm going to be an apprentice and then I'm going to be an electrician and all I'm going to do is change out light switches and receptacles all day. You know that's not the case. I mean, we're there in the beginning of a project, doing the underground, and we're there until the last device is put in. Us and the plumbers, you know, we're better than the plumbers, of course, but we're both there, right? For one, the longevity of a career, being able to be on a project from the start to the finish. I mean, just think about the job security that has. You have drywallers, you have painters, you have concrete guys. Those trades, they're not there the whole time. Framers, they're not all there. They come in, they do their job, and then they're gone, you know? And typically unless you're working for a smaller company, you're doing service work, you might not get to see this as much. But for the bigger contractors, I mean, you might be on a job with 90 guys, 100 guys working the metropolitan areas, Dallas, El Paso, Austin, all those areas. I mean, they're booming right now. And those areas, you're going to get, that's why I'm telling you guys to get into an apprenticeship program, because you're going to get the experience. You're going to get experience to learn so many different things. I prefer the commercial world. I prefer because there's so much more that we get to do. It's not that we're better or whatever. It's just there's so many different aspects to electrical installation that go on in a high-rise building, a hotel, a hospital, things like that. So you're going to get exposed to so many more things. And what I was saying was, not only can you be an installer, but you get to move from being an installer to possibly being a lead journeyman, and then a foreman, and then a general foreman. And then at that level, perhaps you want to move into the office, right? Perhaps you've learned the install side, you've ran a job, you know ordering material, you know handling all of the day in and day out things that go with the people skills that you have to have. You get to learn all those things. You know, you move from foreman to general foreman, and then you want to go into the office. You want to be a PM. You want to be an estimator. You want to perhaps you want to specialize. You know, my career, I've really specialized in lighting controls. Advanced lighting controls. We're installing N-Light systems, Lutron systems, Crestron systems, really diving deep into those things and understanding how they work. And your knowledge just grows exponentially as you have more experience. But that's not it, right? So you could be a field guy, you could be an office guy, you can go train at an electrical training center, you know, you can start your own company. There's so many different avenues in the electrical industry. So if you're an apprentice, I would just encourage you. You don't know a whole lot. This is what I tell a lot of my apprentices. You don't know a whole lot, but don't be discouraged by that. You need to look at what you don't have, and you need to make up for it in other areas. Those areas: motivation, drive, walking fast. I mean, I can't tell you how many apprentices, even journeymen, are so lackadaisical at their job. They just walk around the job site like they could care less if they got fired on the spot. Don't be that guy. Make something of yourself. Be proud of the work that you're doing. And I'll tell you what, as a foreman, even as a lead journeyman, when I was a lead journeyman, when I saw an apprentice who showed me that motivation, that drive, that willingness to learn, showing up early, possibly staying late if it was necessary, within reason, right? When he showed me that that was the type of person he was and he really wanted to learn, what do you think my response was? My response was one of, I'm going to teach this person. I want to take the knowledge that I have and I want to give it to you so that you can be a better electrician, so that you can take care of your family, right? So that you can excel over the next guy. But don't be those, if that's who you are and you just want to skate by, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle, but don't look at the electrical industry. I think there's so many kids these days who I say kid, I'm 33 years old, but anyways, that they want to be a YouTube influencer or they want to be something. They want the quick buck. They want to whatever it is they want to do. They have no idea the opportunity that they can have in a building trade. It is hard work, especially as an apprentice. I know it sucks. It's not fun. It's not something that I enjoyed. You just got to do what you're told and show that motivation, show that drive, and you are going to excel in this field. And I can't tell you, in 13 years, I had no idea when I first started that my career was going to take this direction and go this way. But it's been such a blessing. I'm so thankful for, what God has given me in this trade. My wife stays at home. I've already mentioned it. I get to provide for them. I get to come home and I get to tell them, hey, I built this today. Look at that building. We were just driving the other day. We got off the freeway and I did some side work. I was working on this guy's house and simple spotlights outside. The guy it was a dog daycare and the guy wanted these super bright LEDs. Well, I went to Home Depot, I went to Lowe's, I went to all these places trying to find some good lights and there was nothing that I felt comfortable putting in and they just seemed cheap, everything. So I went on Amazon and I found these 15,000 lumen fixtures, 2 of them for $60 and had to retrofit them to make it work, put it in, and got off the freeway yesterday and I checked it out and I saw the lights up and the guy had actually put a sign for the dog daycare right under one of the lights, right as you come off the freeway. I was so stoked. My wife was like, you are such a dork. And I was like, well, this is fun. I love going back and looking at my work and being able to come home and tell my kids and drive around the city, drive down the freeway. Daddy's been in that building. Daddy's been in that building. Daddy's done that. Do you see those lights? Dad got to do that. I mean, that's what life is about. That's what our career is about. Just finding that pride and that self-satisfaction in what we're doing. So you guys who might be struggling out there, just keep going, show that motivation, show that drive. And I guarantee the trade has so many avenues for all different types of electricians. All right. Sorry about that ramble. I get pretty passionate. I love what I do. It's a fantastic trade. All right. So next section here, a department registered apprenticeship training program must maintain the following documents for 24 months after a participant is no longer enrolled in the program. Participant program application, proof of participant's program completion, participant's leave of absence, resignation, or termination, and other documentation affecting participants' enrollment. J, a department registered apprentice training program must submit to the department. We're not going to go through this. You guys, you don't need to know this. Documentation of required on-the-job training. Section here, A, an applicant for a license which requires on-the-job training under Occupations Code Chapter 1305 may verify that he or she has completed on-the-job training by submitting the department's experience verification form with the license application. B, when an applicant or the department requests verification of on-the-job training of an applicant from a licensee who is authorized by Occupations Code Chapter 1305 to verify on-the-job training, the licensee must provide the verification within 30 days of the request. The licensee must verify only on-the-job training within the licensee's knowledge. The licensee must verify the dates of on-the-job training, describe the work performed by the applicant, specify the name of the business under which the applicant's work was performed, and provide any other information required on the department's form. C, an applicant for a journeyman lineman license must verify that he or she has completed the apprenticeship required by Occupations Code Chapter 1305 by submitting verification in a form acceptable to the department. Next section, 73.27, licensing requirements having to do with temporary apprentices. An applicant for a license as an electrical apprentice or an electrical sign apprentice will be issued a temporary apprentice license if the applicant has not been convicted of a criminal offense and pays the required fees. And B, a temporary license is valid for 21 days and may not be renewed. Section 73.28, we have emergency licenses. The executive director may grant emergency electrician licenses when it's in response to an emergency, a state of disaster declared by the governor, the presiding officer of the governing body of a local governmental entity pursuant to Government Code 418-108, and the executive director determines that a sufficient number of persons holding electrical licenses recognized under Texas Occupations Code Chapter 1305 is not available to perform electrical work needed to timely respond to a disaster. There it shows how to obtain an emergency license if that happens. An emergency license will be classified as master, all the same ones. An emergency license will expire 90 days after issuance. And number one is valid only in the disaster area designated by the governor or in the jurisdiction of a local governmental entity declaring a disaster. Two, it's valid only during the time of that disaster. Number three, may be renewed for an additional 90 days if the disaster and any applicable recovery period continue on the 80th day of the emergency license. The executive director determines at the time that a sufficient number of persons holding electrical licenses recognized under the TOC, Chapter 1305, is not available to perform electrical work needed to timely respond to the disaster. And C, submits a completed renewal application on a form acceptable to the department along with appropriate attachment and the required fee. C, a person holding an emergency license must perform electrical work on behalf of an electrical contractor and in compliance with all applicable statutes, administrative rules, and ordinances. That's a given. The fee for emergency license will be the set amount of set out in 73.80 for the class of emergency license issued. Exemptions, next section. This chapter does not apply to electrical work as provided in Occupations Code Section 1305.003. Insurance requirements. Electrical contractors, sign, residential, installation contractors are required to maintain at least the minimum general liability insurance coverages at all times to satisfy proof of financial responsibility. You masters out there, you know this. It's very easy. You get it and you keep it. There's nothing special about that. These are the numbers that you have to have, the amounts. B, a licensed applicant or licensee shall file with the department a completed certificate of insurance or other evidence satisfactory to the department when applying for initial and renewal licenses and upon request of the department. C, proof of the required general liability and workers' compensation insurance can be submitted on an industry standard certificate of insurance form with a 30-day cancellation notice. Workers' compensation coverage may be established by a certificate of authority to self-insure, or an applicant may state that it has elected not to obtain workers' compensation coverage. We're going to skip to the next section. Electrical contractors' responsibilities. An electrical contractor shall notify the department when a new master electrician of record is assigned to the contractor and notify the department within 30 business days from the date that the master electrician's employment with the contractor ended. And two, they must maintain employee records and records of all work performed on its behalf for a period of 4 years after completion of the work, and shall make those records available to the department at the contractor's place of business during normal business hours for inspection and copy. The contractor's principal place of business is located out of the state of Texas. The department may require the contractor to make records available to the department at its offices in Austin, Texas, or another location agreed upon by the department and the contractor. B, a person or contractor that performs or offers to perform electrical work shall provide safe and proper installation and service, and assure the electromechanical integrity of all work and installations are to applicable code. This is big. This is really big. We need to make sure as electricians that when we are installing, that we do it proper, that we follow the codes, not because the inspector tells us to, but because safety is on the line. I mean, I know that we all don't love the safety guys who run around the job sites, right? But they are there to help protect us, right? And if you're your own, let's say you own an electrical contracting company, or you work in the service department and you're running around, you have got to make sure that I've seen things blow up. I mean, we've all seen it. You got to make sure, excuse me, we got to make sure that what we are installing is safe. I mean, that's the purpose of the code. We're going to get into that, Article 90, right? The purpose of the code is to make sure that we are installing things in a safe manner. It is a minimum safety standard, and we have to be professional. We have to do it right. I could tell you story after story. I'm not going to go into it, but times when someone did something wrong, I know that accidents happen, but times when someone did something wrong, they didn't care, they walked away from it, and that thing blew up on somebody. That is not something that you ever want to have to deal with. I myself, I've ran into one circumstance. I'll tell one story. I was trying to offload a piece of gear off of a truck, a semi, and we had ordered the piece of gear to come on a flatbed truck because it was really tall. Well, they sent it in an enclosed truck. We were really struggling to get it out because when we backed it, they literally had to push the thing in there, and it stretched the roof of the semi a little bit. So when the piece of gear popped in there, it came down over the back of it about 3/4 of an inch. So we couldn't get it out. It kept hitting the back. Well, I finally was able to figure something out of how to get it out of the truck. But the problem was in all the trying to figure it out, I forgot the number one thing. And what is it? Put a strap around it. I didn't do the simple task of put a strap around it. What happened? I actually wasn't driving the forklift. Somebody else was, thankfully. But I was still in charge, so I have to take responsibility for it. He backed out of the truck. The thing started tipping. A $33,000 piece of gear fell over on its side. I had to make the phone calls. It was a nightmare. Thankfully, we found a company that we sent it to, and they were able to refurbish it for $11,000. Whether that was okay or not, I mean, the customer was expecting a brand new piece of equipment. It got recertified and went through all the, UL, everything to make sure that it was up to standard. But it's not something you want to have to do. I actually had to teach. It was my first teaching gig. I had to go teach the forklift training class for our company that year. I was basically voluntold that that's what I needed to do. And so I ended up doing it, teaching safety on forklift. So that's about all the time we have for this section. Yeah, I wanted to make one note on what I said before. I was saying commercial work is the best. It's not the best. There are plenty of residential contractors, residential electricians who are super sharp. I was thinking about it as we were going through it. I by no means was trying to say that. You can get a lot of experience in the residential world as well. My experience just came in the commercial world. So don't think that if you're in working resi right now, you're doing installs over there, that you're not learning anything. You have opportunities over there just the same in the commercial world. So I don't want by any means to push that off and say resi's bad, commercial's the best. You guys can go ahead and get in those conversations with each other. They're both good. We need to be professional in whatever we're doing, following the local codes, following the guidelines that the TDLR has, sorry about that, that the TDLR has outlined for us. You can see we're only halfway through this. There's a whole lot more to it. Perhaps the next course, we'll go through the second half, but the next video, we're going to do electrical safety. The TDLR requires that I have 2 attendance verification questions just to verify that you guys are actually watching these videos and actually taking the course and not just skipping through to the end or whatever. So they're really easy. They're just 2 little questions. There's a total of 8 of them. So we'll have 2 right after this video. Then there'll be the next video. Then we'll have 2 more after that. And the 2 questions are going to be simple. They'll be based off of what we went over here. I'm going to have a little paragraph reminding you of what we were talking about in that section. And then there'll just be 1 quick question, answer it, move on to the next video. Like I said, it's going to get better. We'll do electrical safety, then we'll do National Electric Code, and we'll move on from there. So please, again, just make sure you're watching the videos. I have to make sure that you guys are actually spending the required amount of time, the total 4 hours. It's actually only 50 hours per hour of instruction. So we have a total of 200 minutes to go through, but they figure by the time you're answering the questions and all that other stuff, you'll be in for a full 4 hours. So I hope you guys will join me on the next video. Let's go ahead and move on.